super palate. Cigar Loons invaders of the cigar world. Grumpy preacher, the conspiracy theory expert. Schoedel National Podcast, come and join us. Vitola and proof expert on all things spirits. Tobacco genie stitch director of special operations. Cigar Loons Podcast, we are the invaders of the cigar world. Cigar Kurt, the front porch cowboy. As a ginger grizzly bear with a super palate. Cigar Loons invaders of the cigar world. Preacher, the conspiracy theory expert. Cigar Loons Podcast, come and join us.
Hey.
Is it us?
Hello, gentlemen.
We actually live? Hello?
Looks that way.
Gotcha.
Looks like Gas is frozen there. Well, while he gets sorted out, welcome to the Cigar Loons Podcast with our special guest tonight, Miguel from Crowned Head Cigars. Welcome, Miguel.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. I know I was supposed to be on last week, and this pesky little hurricane came through, and
Oh, dear.
I've only been living in Florida like 5 years, and I've had to deal with 2 hurricanes, which has been terrible. We didn't have that back in Cincinnati, Ohio. But thank you guys for having me on. Thank you guys, and look forward to chatting with you tonight.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm up in the Blue Ridge area in North Georgia, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we moved up here 3 years ago. But I was in Tampa for the last 28 years, so I know exactly what you were going through. Just glad you guys were safe. Actually, my son's still down there too. So, but yeah, and you guys got a double whammy there. But I guess we're waiting for Gaz to get sorted out. I see him back in the studio here. Let's see if he's here. He comes.
Maybe. There he is.
Hello.
You there, buddy?
Hey.
Yes.
Ah, and he's gone again.
Am I back?
One of those
Can
nights.
everybody see me?
You
Can
are
everybody
here.
Back.
Hey, I'm back.
Yep.
Do I have to be honest about that answer?
I think it's that storm coming, of course, from Ireland, and it's coming into England. That storm that goes under the name of Kirk, not Kate. So yeah. But anyway, of course, good evening, everybody, to the Cigar Loons Podcast, and we are, of course, joined by Miguel, of course, the National Sales Manager for Crowned Head Cigars, and my fellow Loon brothers tonight. Of course, we're smoking Crowned Head cigars, and big thank you again, Miguel, for being here tonight, and we're so glad you're safe, my brother, after, of course, what we've seen over in the States with the storm and everything. But let's get into it and, of course, dive into the mind of you, Miguel, and how, of course, you got into cigars, my brother, and then how it is that you became, of course, the National Sales Manager for Crowned Head. So when did you start smoking cigars, and how did you get into them, brother?
You know, I really became fascinated with cigars in about 1992. I just thought they were so neat. Obviously, growing up with a Latino background, cigars were very prominent among many of the men in our family. And so I kind of grew up with this kind of romanticized look of premium cigars. And I just think as you get older and you mature, you start getting interest in things. And I really enjoyed agriculture and understanding how things grew and how they processed and how they got from one place to another. And so tobacco was part of that. And in 1996, I tried my first premium hand-rolled cigar, which was a Fuente, and really kind of fell in love with the experience of smoking. By 1998, I was fully into the culture, going bi-weekly to my local cigar shop in Cincinnati, Strauss Tobacconist, downtown Cincinnati, smoking a little bit of everything. But in 98, I really fell in love with a brand called CAO Cigars. And CAO was a brand out of Nashville, Tennessee, which was, only, 3-4 hours south of me in Cincinnati. They had a cigar at the time called L'Anniversaire Maduro. It was a red label Maduro. And that became kind of my signature cigar in 98. I started going to the big smokes in Chicago. At that time, before they were held out near O'Hare Airport, they were held downtown Chicago. And I just fell in love with that brand. That became my brand. Like you have your favorite team, your favorite soccer team or football team or baseball team. CAO kind of became my brand. And I would meet the owners, Tim Osgener, and I'd say to Tim, one day I'm going to work for you. And then 1999, go back to the big smoke. I'd say, one day I'm going to work for you. And then in 2000, see him again. I'd say, one day I'm going to work for you. And then one day he reached out and said, hey, I'm coming to Cincinnati for an event. I can't promise you a job, but I can promise you an interview. And at that time, CAO was going to go all in-house. At that time, there were more cigar brokers, which are independent sales guys. And they were going to go all in-house, direct sales force that worked exclusively for them. And at that time, the only people that used exclusive in-house reps were pretty much Davidoff, Ashton, Altadis in general. Outside of that, everyone, Drew Estate was using brokers, Rocky was using brokers, Perdomo was using brokers. So it was a big deal for CAO to go in-house. So I was part of the first team of in-house sales reps for the Osgener family at CAO. And the rest is history. I worked for them for 7 years. We sold to STG, and I worked for Toraño and then Duran. And then the same guys, it's the same group of people I've worked around my whole 21 years in this business. And, Osgener, Tim Osgener is co-owner of Crown Heads, and obviously he has his own brand that we distribute as well. Mike and John were executives. The current owners of Crown Heads were executives at CAO, and I worked with them at CAO. And Toraño made most of the CAOs at the time, and I did a stop there as well. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with cigars at a very young age, seeing, I always say it's like Italians with wine, right? You're exposed maybe to wine at a younger age, being an Italian household. Cigars are that way amongst, I think, Latino or Hispanic households. They're just part of the culture. And so there were a lot of Te Amos in my family. My family background is Mexican, and I just fell in love with it. And I said, I'm going to work in that industry somehow. And it's been 21, almost 22 years. Very blessed to work for, I can name all the people I've worked for on one hand. And I'm very proud of that. And when Crown Heads grew a little bit bigger, Mike and John said, we're going to come get you when we need a national guy. And about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they came to me and said, we're ready for you. And so I left the brand I was working for and came and worked for them. But all the brands I worked for were all intertwined. The Toraños were making the CAOs. We were distributing Toraño. We were also distributing Dunhill, and the guy that ran the Dunhill cigar division was Roberto Duran, Pelayo Duran, who also I worked for him for a short amount of time. So all of these guys I've worked for are all pretty much the same people I met when I first got in the industry. So I'm pretty proud of that.
It's awesome.
Cool. Of course, I know you said about working at CAO. How was it, of course, working there and meeting the likes, of course, of Ricky Rodriguez? Ricky there at CAO.
Yeah, well, Ricky came on after us. So when I joined CAO, it was in the early 2000s, and we had so many great brands at that time: La Traviata, Brasilia, Italia, MX2, CX2, LX2. And we wind up getting bought in 2007 by Henry Winterman, which was a division of STG, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, that now owns General Cigar. And STG bought General from the Coleman family in New York. Bit of history there in the cigars. And they had acquired Villazon. That's how they got brands like Hoyt Monterey and Punch. And then they acquired La Gloria Cubana from the Perez Carrillo family. And then they acquired CAO eventually. So when we were all there in 2007, nothing had changed. They just wanted us to sell their mass production mini cigarette or cigar called Cafe Creme. And then in 2010, everything kind of changed. They merged with, they bought CI and General, and they were going to merge everything together. And it was pretty neat at that time. But Mike and John and Tim all did not want to go over to work at General Cigar. Tim didn't want to leave Nashville. John Huber didn't want to leave Nashville. Mike Condor had worked for General in the early 80s until about 2000, about 2000. And so 2001. And so they had already been there and done that. And so once that happened, they needed somebody to be the face of CAO. And they went and grabbed Ricky, who started as a rep for General and then became a team member of Team La Gloria Cubana, learned how to blend, how to do all those things. And they went to Ricky and they said, Ricky, we've got this brand CAO we just bought, and there's none of the guys are going to come over to represent it. Would you take it over? And Ricky did. And I have to tell you, that brand was so close to my heart, working for John Osgoner, Tim Osgoner, Eileen Osgoner, all of us. It was a little bit like your favorite band getting signed by a big record label. You were a little bit angry, but a little bit happy because people were going to know more about it. But at the end, Ricky Rodriguez took CAO to another level. And to this day, I see Ricky all the time. And I always tell Ricky, like, Ricky, you did such an amazing job. You were handed the keys to a Porsche. And not only did you keep it a Porsche, but you gave it a great body color. You tuned it up and made it go even faster. So I never got to work with Ricky. Ricky came on after we all left, but my heart that I have for Ricky is amazing. I love smoking West Tampa cigars. And when Tim Osgoner came back into the industry, the first year he was back at the PCA trade show, before day one, Tim walked over to Ricky's booth and to see those two embrace, because you basically had, past, present, and then present, future there. And now they're both no longer involved with CAO. They're both doing their own thing. It was just an awesome, if you love cigars and you love history and you love the culture, it was an awesome thing to see.
Yeah. And that's great, of course, that you've told us that, because probably some people don't know that information about that. And of course, it's nice to get that. But I was telling the guys today.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Go on.
Oh, well,
Sorry,
sometimes I'm in cigar events and I'll meet old CAO fans and they'll say, "Oh, how's Tim doing? And what's new with the brand? I haven't kept up with CAO." And then I'll meet other people who will say, "Miguel, tell me about your background." I'll say, "Oh, I worked for CAO." And they'll say, "Oh, you worked with Ricky." I go, "Actually, I didn't work with it. It was before Ricky." So it's just a long history, because CAO has a history that goes back to 1968. And there's been a lot of people involved. And it's just awesome to see everyone that's been involved in CAO to go on and have incredible careers. Mickey Pegg worked there. Now he owns his own brand, All Saints. Several employees of other brands. There's a couple guys that work at Drew Estate that worked at CAO. So it's awesome. There's so many incredible people that came from that to go on and have incredible careers in the industry. So it was magical time.
I just want to, of course, say hi to everybody who's joining us on, of course, Facebook. Well, not Facebook, Instagram, I should say, of course, on rumble.com and on YouTube. It will be on, of course, the Facebook group tomorrow. And good evening, of course, to everybody for watching. And, of course, our brothers from the other side of the states, the Leaf Cutters, are watching as well. So way up to the Leaf Cutters.
What's up, guys?
Well, yeah, so I was saying to the guys earlier, Miguel, how, of course, the whole name of Crown Heads became. But, of course, let's go over how the name of Crown Heads all came around, because I think it's a unique story of how Crown Heads became Crown Heads and how it all came about.
Yeah. At the end of CAO, Mike Condor, who has been a legend in his business, he's been around since 1980 in the business. And Mike, he's one of those guys that's always been in the background on the sales side. So most people don't know Mike if you're just a consumer. John Huber, who's always had a very prominent name and face in the business, they both knew that they weren't going to go on with CAO. They were going to create something. And when you're naming something new, you got to put a lot of thought into it. And nothing was coming to mind. They kept coming up with different names and different ideas. One day, John is literally watching The Wizard of Oz with his daughter. And in one of the scenes, he sees this train car in the back, and it says the Crown Heads of Europe, past, present, and future. And John sees that name, and John just says, "Man, there's something spoke to him in that name." And so he texts Mike Condor in the middle of the night and said, "Crowned Heads," and they both fell in love with the name. And so our name literally comes from the Wizard of Oz, which is quite funny because Tim Osgener everyone calls Tim, Tim Oz or Oz Family Cigars for short. And so we have the Oz and we have the and the Wizard of Oz, so it all kind of comes together. But that's where the name comes from. You never know where a name's going to come from. You never know where the inspiration is going to come from. But literally, John was watching Wizard of Oz, and that's where the name came from. And a little bit of John and Mike behind the curtain, pulling the strings and making things happen with the cigar factories that produce our cigars. It's a great analogy, and it didn't happen this way. I mean, the C in Crowned could represent Condor's last name, and the H and Heads could represent Huber, John's last name. But they didn't plan it that way. But that's an extra little, little Da Vinci code, if you will, on that. And it's a great name. It's a great name. And you guys will see next year we're going to be literally at PCA. We're going to start using the name Crowned Heads more on brands and blends. So that name's going to become much more prominent over the next few years.
That's cool. And like I say, it's a great story. And when I heard about it, I was like, I've got to tell the brothers. The brothers need to know the story. And I've got to say, from the couple of Crowned Heads that I got sent over here to the UK to smoke by friends of mine from the States, I absolutely loved the Lost Angel. And I tried it in 2021. And geez, I fell in love with that cigar. And then, of course, I'm not going to go too much into it, but of course, it's the one that my brother Matthew's smoking. And that, of course, is the Eruption. And I really enjoyed that cigar as well. And like I say, fantastic company, fantastic name. Even just looking through the back catalogue of Crowned Heads and seeing all the different cigars, the different bands, hearing about them, of course, the Mil Diaz and different ones, the La Batista, of course, what Kurt likes. There's something there for everyone. And you know something? We're so glad that you're sitting here tonight and we can go over this. So that's enough of the English guy talking for a little bit. I'm going to pass it over now, of course, to my Cigar Loon brothers. And Miguel, if you want to know why we came up with Cigar Loons, we're all a bit crazy and we like cigars. So that's how we got Cigar Loons, my brother. That's the story of how we got our name. But of course, I'm going to go straight down to my brother, Mr. Vital and Proof. So Matthew, on with the show, my brother, and down to you.
Sure. Miguel, thank you again for coming on with us. I really enjoy all the Crowned Heads I've tried. This is my first time with the CHC Series E. Kurt recommended it to me, so I figured I had to pick one up for tonight. I am really enjoying it right now. I've getting a lot of like earthy and coffee type notes, some leather.
Coffee bean. I get a lot of coffee bean out of that cigar. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then I just wanted to bring up the design of it. With you talked about. I've heard about it has to do with the Eruption guitar solo, and you kind of designed it to look like his guitar, Eddie's guitar. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
I think John Huber is really the mind behind all of our blends. He works very closely with our blending partners at My Father, at Casa Carrillo, Iradio Pichardo, at Naxa. And everyone's inspired by different things, right? When I look at a company like Fuente, they're inspired by their family, Padron by the history of their family and Exodus. There's so many things that can inspire you. And John loves music. John is originally from San Francisco. He lived in SoCal for many years and then lived in Nashville. Obviously still lives in Nashville. And so music plays a big part in John's life. I mean, when he's working on cigars, if you walked into our office in Nashville, you always hear music going on. There's always music and everyone's choosing different songs to play. And sometimes a song really speaks to him. And so Johnny Cash inspired Jericho Hill and Juarez with the song Cocaine Blues. The Four Kicks was inspired by Kings of Leon in their song Four Kicks. And he was listening to Eruption by Van Halen, and he felt like when you listen to that guitar solo, it was almost like the ritual of warming the end of your cigar, puffing it, blowing out the smoke as the guitar kind of bottoms out on you. And that really kind of inspired him. So none of the cigars are called the Johnny Cash or the Kings of Leon or the Van Halen cigar. It's just little nods to things that inspired John. Because when you create a blend, when you create a cigar, the truth is, if you are a cigar fan, if you love tobacco, if you love this agricultural product, you don't need fancy names or fancy boxes. But in a world of marketing and it's like having a child and you think really hard about what you're going to name that child. Same thing with a cigar. When you create a cigar, you want to give it a great name. You want to give it a great presentation and great display. And so that cigar really was inspired by that guitar solo. And we couldn't name it Eruption because the name Eruption was already taken by, I think, like a bait company. So we named it Series E. and so everyone knows what the E stands for. And I would tell you that it's not the last cigar will be inspired by music. Not every blend is, but a lot of times our cigars take inspiration. John, growing up in San Francisco, great music city, growing up in SoCal and LA with the rock scene and the punk scene, and then Nashville where live music and country music is so prominent. You can't help but be surrounded by music his whole life. And John loves the arts, loves all of that. So that's a big inspiration to him working on cigars. And he's that guy who will sit at his desk with 10 different blends and turn on some music and just get lost in the music and enjoying the cigar. And sometimes that carries over. And so it's pretty awesome. I love it. I think anyone who's around cigars would love to have their own cigar someday. And I always say the fun is blending a cigar, but putting out in the world, giving it a name that has significance or that has importance that you hope connects with somebody. That's the scary part, right? And so it's pretty awesome to do that. So that's kind of the background on that cigar. As I said, we'll probably have more cigars inspired by different things. Our newest line we put out, the trade show, is called Coroneta, which was inspired by the British royalty, English royalty, the old crowns that they used to wear. And they would have like these strawberry leaves and gold around their crown, and that inspired Coroneta. So we're inspired by many things, but music is a big part of that. And that's totally because of who John is as a person.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you for answering that. I guess my next question would have to go around what you're going to pair with the cigar. I tend to do whiskey of some sort, coffee a lot of the time, even a diet soda. So, what's your go-to for like an evening cigar?
Well, this is the thing. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Cincinnati, but you're in bourbon country when you're in Cincinnati.
I live in Cleveland, so.
Oh, hey now, our good friends up north. Well, in Cincinnati, we're basically Kentuckians, right? And bourbon is a way of life. So all the years of living in Cincinnati, my whole entire life up to 5 or 6 years ago, bourbon is king. So I always say bourbon is a great thing, and there's so many different kind of bourbons. But I am a rum fanatic. I am a rum fanatic. As a Mexican American, I should love tequilas, but I married a Puerto Rican who loves rum. I love rum. And so for me, what I love doing, you guys, is meeting people who are whiskey drinkers, people that like cognacs or wine or whatever. And this is what I tell them. I get so excited. I say, if I could take you with me to one of the 4 great cigar producing countries in the world, right? That's Cuba, Nicaragua, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic. The people that are growing your tobacco, the people that are rolling the cigars, the people that are working, what do you think they drink with their cigars? Rum. And so now trying to get people out of that state, because I've met so many people who said, "Oh, Miguel, I can't do rum." And I say, "Why? Why can't you do rum?" They go, "In college, Bacardi." And I say, okay. I know what kind of rum. Now I got to introduce you to really well-aged rum, Diplomatico, Zacapa, Havana Club, Maestros. That kind of rum is the kind of rum that pairs so well with cigars. If you're not going to do alcohol, coffee is by far the best thing. And I'm a little biased, but I'm a huge Coke Zero guy, and I drink Coke Zeros like they're going out of fashion. I love a good Coke Zero, but coffee is great. Espresso is great. But I will tell you that I think a dark, well-aged rum, one, the people that are growing your tobacco, and what grows together goes together. So in the mountain, like let's take Nicaragua, Jalapa. You have this beautiful valley, and all the tobacco is being grown at the bottom of the valley of the mountains. And at the top of the mountains, they're growing coffee, and all that runoff,
y'all be careful.
all that nutrients roll down the mountains into the valley and feed the tobacco plants. Now, when you grow in a valley, sometimes you have to grow something around your tobacco plantation to block the wind from coming in and ripping the leaves. And a lot of times they'll grow sugarcane around a tobacco field, so it'll take the brunt of the wind that comes through the valley. And so you have sugarcane being grown near tobacco. The great rums of the world come from the same countries that make great cigars, and you have coffee being grown. So that is where I tell people, pour yourself a wonderful, well-aged. I like it neat. I don't like it on ice. I like it neat, at 2 or 3 finger pour, and just even if I can't convert you, I want you to have an appreciation for rum. And I meet a lot of great people who take these trips with Nick Perdomo, Drew Estate, or Rocky to Central America, and they always come back with a great appreciation for rum because they couldn't get their whiskey down there. And so I'm a rum guy. Rum all day long.
I love it. I've started to get into rum. I have a plantation 5-year-old that I really enjoy. They've changed their name since. I can't remember what it's, Plant Array or something like that. But
Plant Ray. Yep.
Okay. So I really enjoy that rum. I pretty low on the bottle, So I am a fan of it as well. So I really appreciate that take on it. That's all I have for today. Let's head it up to Kurt. What's your question, bud?
Miguel, thank you for being here. I have been so excited for this episode. I absolutely love Crowned Heads. Just talking about this, the CHC, the Series E that Matthew's smoking. When I first got this cigar and I smoked it in relation to that Eruption guitar solo, I'm a medium plus guy, and this cigar takes me right to the edge of my limit. The way it just builds and builds and builds through that, it is a fabulous cigar. I absolutely love it. But my favorite Crown Head, and then as of right now, this last year, my favorite cigar is the La Patistia.
Oh my God, yeah.
I absolutely love this cigar. So much so that my custom nub tool that I made has that band on it. So
that's awesome.
It tells you how much I love this cigar. Connecticut broadleaf. I've been smoking a lot of Connecticut broadleaf this last year. But really, what really fascinates me is that Costa Rican tobacco in there, and you don't see that a lot. I guess, can you give me the backstory behind this cigar? It was a limited edition initially, wasn't it? Was it not?
Yes, yeah, it was. Le Pâtissier. I call it Le Pâtissier, and then I met a French guy who said actually LE is like in French would be La. So I've been saying it wrong forever. So it's actually La Pâtissier. But, however you say it's all good, What's interesting about that cigar, that cigar came out of a need, a necessity for broadleaf, because we had this cigar called Le Carême, which we still make today. Le Carême is a Connecticut broadleaf, Ecuador Sumatra binder, Nicaraguan filler made for us by Casa Carrillo in the Dominican. Well, there was a broadleaf shortage in the industry. No one was getting their hands on broadleaf. Broadleaf was at a true shortage for a few years there. Rocky didn't have it. If you remember Pete Johnson with my father, he was putting out a lot of Mexican wrapper stuff because there just wasn't any broadleaf. So Le Carême disappeared off the shelf. What I love so much about Mike and John was people came to us and said, hey, you don't have broadleaf, that's fine. We'll sell you a broadleaf we're growing in Nicaragua. We'll sell you this leaf that looks like broadleaf. And instead of changing the wrapper and not telling anybody, we took it off the shelves until broadleaf was back in stock to put out Le Carême. Well, that left a void, right?
Right.
Our good friends at NACSA, Nicaraguan American Cigars SA, they do a lot of cigars for a lot of people. probably most famously, they make our Le Pâtissier, they make our Cornetta, and they do some stuff for Dunbarton Trust for our good friend Saka. And so they have some of the best reserves of broadleaf in the industry. So they said, look, if you want a broadleaf, we'll give you a broadleaf. So Le Carême is a French name. It comes named after a French chef who created the French, all the mother sauces for French cooking and everything. So we wanted to keep that French name kind of carried on. So when we worked on this blend, we had to work with Costa Rican, which was not a tobacco that we had used since the CAO days. And so using Costa Rican tobacco that has a little bit of a salty characteristic to it. We use a little bit in our Mil Dias as well. And now Costa Rica back in the 90s, I don't know if you guys remember, but Costa Rica had a hot moment there where there were some factories there. They were growing some great tobacco there. They just didn't catch on like Nicaragua and Honduras. Their economy was very different. So the tobacco coming out of Costa Rica is very far and few between, but the stuff that does come out is incredibly well grown, well-aged tobacco. So when we were working on this blend, Gus Gura and Raul Bisla, who was working on this blend with us at Noxa, suggested that we tie in some Costa Rican. And it just really brought the blend together. And to give it a French name, John Huber was in a French pastry a store, and he saw macaroons, and he saw the pistachio macaroon, and he saw that color that's on that band, and he said, man, no one's using that color. So that's really what inspired it, was being in a French bakery. Le Pâtissier means the baker. So it's the brother or sister brand, if you will, of Le Carême. It's made in Nicaragua. It has that beautiful high grade Connecticut broadleaf. And there's 4 great sizes. We've done 2 limited edition sizes. The first size was a Lonsdale. Then we did a traditional Cuban number 2 size. And then there's 4 traditional sizes that are in there. So that cigar is, among the company, that is one of the most popular cigars smoked within the entire company. That is a blend that we absolutely love. Absolutely love.
Yeah, I even the bread notes in here, and I even get just a faint mint note in it. I mean, for me, being a medium plus guy, this is just so smooth, relaxing. I absolutely love it.
You know, we were choosing the sizes for that cigar, and 2 of the sizes, the number 50 and the number 54, were inspired by the Cure d'Orsay, which is a Cuban brand that they used to make for the French market. Now it's sold all over the world. But about 2017, they kind of completely changed the packaging on Cure d'Orsay. They redid all the vitolas and relaunched it in like 2017, 2018. And 2 sizes from that really intrigued John and I. And so John took 2 of those sizes, number 50, number 54, directly from that line into that Le Pâtissier line. So it's got a great story, great background. That's a huge fan favorite of ours. And the number 50 is this little, beautiful, Robusto, almost Rothschild-like. And that is a great way to start your day if you do like a good espresso. And I agree with you. It's right on the border of being full-bodied or full strength. It just takes you right up to that area. And that's what I love about that cigar. It's got this beautiful, bold characteristic. And there's nothing. There's no tobacco like broadleaf. Broadleaf is so unique. It's not the prettiest tobacco, but it's got flavor, like unbelievable flavor. And that's why broadleaf is so popular in our industry today. Nick Melillo, Steve Saka are in love with it. You know, obviously Drew Estate's in love with it. It is just a beautiful tasting tobacco. And if you get it, you get it. And broadleaf is in short supply, not as bad as it used to be, but thank the Lord that we're able to get our hands on it. So now Le Carême and Le Pâtissier are both in the market.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, that'll be I haven't tried the Le Carême. That'll be my next one, but I just can't get enough of these. So,
well, I will tell you this.
Next question.
If you smoke the Le Carême, just remember that's going to be much smoother than the one you're smoking. So Le Carême is like an early day broadleaf, and Le Pâtissier is more mid to late day.
All right. The next question I have, I was on the Crown Heads website today, and I'm a hat guy. Most of the time, I'm wearing my cowboy hat, but when I'm fishing, I like to wear a baseball cap. I think there's 7 or 8 pages of baseball caps on that website. I mean, there's every design you can imagine is there. What's the story? Whose inspiration is that?
It's funny. I'm very blessed to have met John when I joined CAO. John had been working for CAO since the early 90s. And John and I both have a love for baseball caps, vintage caps, Negro League baseball, minor league baseball, major league. We just love baseball hats. Well, his love came from when he was a kid in San Francisco. When he got good grades or something like that, his mother would take him to downtown San Francisco to a department store, and he could pick out a baseball cap. So as a kid, he grew obsessed with these baseball caps. And when he joined CAO, baseball caps in the cigar world were horrible quality. I mean, they were just terrible quality. They were ugly. They were not nice. So John, and I give John, I think the industry does, that John took the idea of a baseball cap with a cigar brand logo and took it to another level, better quality, better materials, and he just perfected that through all the years at CAO. So when he started Crowned Heads, that was going to be a major part of what we did. And he wanted to continue that love of baseball caps into our brand. And if you see our caps, a lot of them are unique. A lot of them are our own design. And then there's a lot of them that we use other design elements, and we put our logo into that. And we've done custom caps for different shops, for different online retailers, for stores. And it's just a way to say, hey, someone makes a great lighter, someone makes a great cutter, someone makes a great t-shirt. Our thing is baseball caps. And there's so many people in the industry who will say, you know what? John Huber, either it was at CAO or Crown Heads, took the quality of a baseball cap and took it to the next level. And we are so blessed that walking around anywhere around the world, you'll see people with Crown Heads hats on. I remember when I lived in Cincinnati, I remember coming down to Miami once on vacation with my wife, and we were on the beach, and I saw two people walking around with Crown Heads hats on. I remember thinking to myself, wow. So that's where it comes from. It comes from his love as a child, carrying that into his professional life, and has continued to do it. And now we could never go back. We always have to do hats. So pretty awesome.
Very cool. Well, again, we're all of us are just so happy you're here, and we really appreciate your time. I'm going to shoot it on over there to Grumpy. See what Grumpy's got for you.
Good evening.
Hey, good to see you, sir.
Now, I appreciate you taking time to be here, man. I'm glad everything's good with you over there in the Naples area, because you guys took a thrashing, man. We over here in the Panhandle. It went so far. It moved so far east in on you guys. We didn't get anything. So, I'm glad you're all right. Glad everything's good over there, man.
Well, I'll tell you this. I moved to Florida, as I said, 5 or 6 years ago, and man, this state is pretty wild. I'll tell you. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm on a freshwater lake. There's gators, there's rattlesnakes, there's hurricanes. I didn't know moving down here it was going to be so exciting, man. Jeez.
Yeah. I've been down here 5 years from East Tennessee, so I feel you. But I've got the Mil Diaz tonight.
That's what I'm smoking.
The Maduro.
Oh.
And it was just the Edmundo, like the 5 3/8 by 52 or something like that.
Yep.
But I don't know how you can pack any more different flavors into one cigar. I got a 5-pack of these, and of course this is my last one. I saved it for this. But it's like every time I smoke this, it's like you find another one or two things in there you didn't see the last time. It's just crazy, but it's such a good cigar. And I've only got this and one other question, but the Mil Diaz, I know that's the 1,000 days, even got the Roman numeral on it. But what was the background on getting this one out?
Mil Diaz was interesting. That's actually a great story. So we started working on that blend with Iradio Pichardo. He's a former Cuban expatriate. He worked for Habanos, mostly in agriculture. He got to work on some incredible cigars when he was in Cuba. Partaga Series D was probably the most famous one he got to work on. And what was interesting was, he really had this blend that he loved, and we wanted to tweak it, and he wanted us to release the cigar. He owns a factory called Tacanixa in Nicaragua, and he's one of the small factories that we use. And we started working on this blend with him, tweaking it, working on it. And we had to stop because we had to work on a cigar for Germany at the time, which eventually the blend became known as Juarez, and we released Juarez. And so we had all these other projects jumping in while we were working on this cigar. Look, You could, if you wanted to, you could rush a brand to market in 6 months, right? It doesn't need to take years, but this cigar took literally 3 years from the first time we started working on it until the very end. And so it's a little bit of tongue in cheek, right? When John named it Mil Diaz, it has a beautiful Spanish name. I love the band. I love the white crisp colored band, the gold ring, the Roman numeral M. But the tongue in cheek is we named it 1,000 days because it basically took us 1,000 days to get this brand out in the market. And we launched it during the pandemic. And it's so no traditional trade show to launch it. There was not the traditional way you'd want to launch a brand in the US with a big trade show and all of the cigar media coming to take pictures of it and sampling it. We really had to do very kind of guerrilla strategy, and it turned into something really incredibly special. And I'm smoking the Habano, the original, which has that Costa Rican, has the Peruvian Pero de Oro, has Nicaraguan in it as well. Beautiful Ecuador Habano. And it just became a monster. And we have it now in several sizes, a Corona Gorda. We have it in a double Robusto, which is kind of a Churchill, the Edmundo. We have the Sublime, which is a Toro. And since then, we've added a size called the Topaz, which was strictly taken from the Cuban line. Trinidad has a size called Topaz. It's a 4 7/8 56 pigtail. And so the next evolution to that was, let's do a Maduro version of it, right? Now, you can do different things. You can just change the wrapper. You can just do a wrapper swap, right? That could be the easiest way. But the wrappers always don't match up with the tobaccos that you're using in the filler. So this, we actually took the Peruvian out. We took the Costa Rican out, and we used Nicaraguan tobacco from Esteli, from Jalapa, and Ometepe, a tobacco we have never used in any crown head cigar before. So there's Ometepe in that filler. And then we used a broadleaf wrapper, a much thinner, lighter broadleaf wrapper for that cigar. And the Maduro, we always tell everyone, look, the Mil Diaz Habano and the Mil Diaz Maduro, they may share a name, they may share a factory, but they are two completely different blends with two completely different characteristics. And I don't know what it is. Sometimes, I'm not a huge music guy, right? But sometimes a musician, he'll tell a story like, oh, I wrote this song. I wrote it in 2 minutes. I put no work into it, and boom, it became a hit. Or I worked on this song for years, and no one ever listened to it, right? Sometimes something is like lightning in a bottle, and Mil Diaz became that lightning in a bottle for us. The Maduro, the Habano, has a huge fan base. It's now sold in almost 13 countries around the world. It has definitely become our signature core line, and we're very proud to team up with a guy like Iradio Pichardo, who's a wonderful cigar maker. He has some tobacco fields as well in Ecuador that he has, and sometimes things just happen incredibly well. We took our time on the cigar, and it turned into something special, and it means the world to me that you're enjoying it, because that cigar, when someone comes to me and says, hey, Miguel, I've never smoked a Crown Heads. I've never smoked a Crown Heads. I always give them 1 or 2 cigars. I say, try the original 4 Kicks Habano or try our Mil Diaz, either Maduro or Habano. One of those 3 cigars is going to get you, and you're going to fall in love with it. And so that is the story behind Mil Diaz. I love the cigar, and I always have a bunch of them on me, because I don't care if you're a full body guy or a mild guy, you can enjoy the Mil Diaz any which way. I think it's a brand and a blend that kind of crosses many palates. And it's been successful. And in this industry, when you have a brand that stands alone, that is very successful, you feel very proud. And the people we work with, consistency, when you have a brand on the market for years, for a decade, and you get that consistency year after year, that's a lot of hard work. That's probably the hardest thing to do in our industry, is consistency in a blend. Right. Mother Nature never grows the same weather pattern. So keeping it consistent throughout the year since it's been released has been, I think, a feather in the cap of the people we work with, and it's been really, really exciting.
All right, yeah, and even a lot of people that go by the bands when they go to pick cigars. I mean, even though this is, a lot of people would say this is kind of plain, but it pops, it goes together, it sticks out. You notice that.
Very elegant, in a beautiful. It sits in a box. It's very elegant. That beautiful white band, and I like the paper texture that we used on it. It just seems to hit on all angles, and I'm very proud of that cigar. That's why I'm smoking it tonight, and I'll smoke 2 more before I go in.
All right. My last thing is is more along the lines of the business side of things. Like I said, I was doing some reading on it. And you guys have this thing called PSYOP, and you actually did not take the conventional method as far as growing your company. You know, can you can you expound on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that look. This premium cigar industry is a culture. It's not. There's a culture behind it. For you to be in this business, you have to love agriculture. You have to love the business. You have to love people. You have to love this kind of thing. And there's different ways people have got in over the years, right? There's people that came from, like Ernesto Perez Carrillo is a perfect example. His family was involved in cigars in Cuba. They fled after the revolution and continued that culture, right? Then you have guys like Padron, who didn't make cigars in Cuba, but when he landed in Miami after the revolution, wanted to create a cigar that was the cigars that he remembered smoking in Cuba and his family. And so there's all different angles. And then there's people, that are completely from outside, maybe Drew Estate or, McAuliffe, who are people from the outside who say, man, I love this business. I want to get in this business. And there's different ways you can grow your business. We didn't advertise in the magazines. We didn't go and do the traditional kind of, crazy deals to get into retail shops or anything like that. We literally just allowed the cigar to speak for themselves. Our long, Tim Osgood was born into this business. Mike Connor's been in it since 1980. John's been in it since the 90s. And when you have that longevity in this business, you create a lot of good relationships. And so when they launched Crown Heads, there were a lot of people who said, we'd love to make a cigar for you guys. We want to make something special for you. And so John and Mike basically said, we're going to let the tobacco speak for us. We're going to go out. We're going to have people sample the cigar and win them over that way with the power of the cigar over the power of advertising, the power of that kind of way of doing things. So it was really very much a person-to-person, one-on-one, smoking our cigar, coming to in a place where we could introduce you to our blends. And to me, it's a much longer road, but it's a much more, I think, legitimate kind of building that true rapport, building that true connection with consumers. And I always say that when you're in this business, you can take two attitudes. One, it's a business and I'm going to get everything I can out of it. Or it's a culture. I want to give more than I take from the business. I want to add to the culture. And I think that's been our attitude from day one. And there's a lot of companies that have been around longer than Crown Heads that are a lot smaller than us that we have, I think, taken a real deal road on how to grow the company and build relationships. And it's been very exciting to do it that way.
I do appreciate that. And once again, like I said, glad you're okay. And I do appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you.
You started off, Matthew. I think we got to go to Jesse now up there hiding in the corner.
Hey.
My apologies for the screen. Don't know what happened today. But thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really appreciate it. Today I decided to go with the La Imperiosa.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's just gorgeous ash. And I love the flavor of this cigar. I know it's supposed to be like a full body cigar. To me, it's more like a medium. It is a lot of dark chocolate, some leather. The pepper on it is not in your face. The pepper on it is an afterthought. It's after you exhale, then you feel that pepper in your tongue and on your lip, and it's really pleasant. It reminds me of a Latina woman, nice, delicate, and spicy.
Yeah, I'm married to one. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican myself, so I got you, brother. So really tell me how this cigar came about. I know it comes out of one of my favorite places, which is from my father's, and like I said, I have it in the double Corona. And it's really, really pleasant, very delicate. Just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, working with Don Pepin Garcia, the whole Garcia, Yanni, Jaime, they're an amazing partner of ours in manufacturing. They do our Las Calaveras, they do our Jericho Hill. They're an incredible family with a great story, and you talk about a family that, wind up getting out of Cuba way after the revolution, who established themselves. And, I remember Pepin when he was rolling for Tropical Tobacco at events. And John Huber is great friends with Pete Johnson. And when Pete started working with the Garcias to create the original brown label Tatuaje, John was really good friends with Pete, and Pete, sent him some cigars, and John said, I think this cigar is a game changer for the industry. And we all know what Tatuaje became, and obviously now my father has become. And they don't work with a lot of people. I mean, if you look at who really works with them, it's Nick from Foundation, it's us, it's Ashton, and the Garcias, basically, and Pete, right, and Letelier. Those are all kind of their family brands, and so we feel very blessed to work with that incredible family. In 2014, we released our first Las Calaveras, and it to this day people call it a unicorn. It's one of the most sought after unicorns out there, and we wanted to take the bones of that blend, maybe not exact, but the bones of that blend, and release it as a core line. So in 2015, we launched La Imperiosa. Now, that is a Cuban family, the Garcias. So we thought it would be great to give it a Cuban heritage or a Cuban name. So John did a lot of research, and there's this brand called La Imperiosa that was made in Cuba pre-revolution, 20s and 30s, and I believe into the 40s, and the brand died out. And so we found that no one owned that name anymore. So we took that name, and the color of that band, we actually have the original Vista from like 1920 or 1930 in our office of the original Vista, and it's actually red and gold. And we already had a red band in the 4 kicks, so we had to choose a new color, and that Tiffany blue was not being used by anybody. Now, AJ uses, a lot of people use that color. It's a beautiful color, but that color wasn't being used, so we tied that in, and it turned out to be this incredible success. It comes in 4 core Vitolas, the Mexico, the Double Robusto, the Corona Gorda, and the Dukes, and it is a full-flavored cigar. I always say it's medium strength, but it's full-bodied, right? Strength and body are 2 completely different things.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's got that strength to give you that medium strength, but that body is bold and robust. And you have that black pepper, which is signature Pepin, right? Pepin has that signature black pepper, but in La Imperiosa, it's not the first note. It's a supporting note in the blend. And I think La Imperiosa, if you look at the packaging, it's got the fileta, it's got the beautiful vista, it's packaged very kind of old school, and it has continued to be one of our best performing brands and blends to this day. And I tell people, look, if you want a beautiful, dark Ecuador Schoedel wrapper made by one of the best factories in the world, that cigar, if you want something bold. So when I'm in a store and someone says, I've tried the Mil Diaz, I've tried the 4 kicks, I've tried Le Patissier, but yeah, anything a little bit bolder, I always go to La Imperiosa, because La Imperiosa has that in spades. It has that body and characteristics. So it was about resurrecting an old Cuban brand that was made pre-revolution, and it was about giving that cigar a history and a story and an ability to bring back a name that had died because of the revolution. And I think successful doing that, and I'm great you connected with it. It does extremely well in Florida. I think the name, the story really resonates with a lot of people, and yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful cigar, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a beautiful cigar to even look at. The wrapper is gorgeous. That Habano Oscuro wrapper it's a beautiful, beautiful wrapper. And realistically, when it comes to a Connecticut shade or a broadleaf, I usually tend to go more to, if it's a Connecticut shade, I much rather have a Habano. The broadleaf I love, but a Habano Oscuro is always a great way to go if you can't get a broadleaf, in my opinion. And you can't beat the delicate flavors that come out of it. It's really, really great.
I think to say something to that, it's pretty easy to make a mild cigar. It's hard to make a full flavored cigar with nuance, and your words mean a lot to me, and I know John and Mike and everybody mean a lot to, because when you have a cigar that has that bold characteristic but having nuanced flavor, that's difficult to do. And obviously the guys are darn good at it. So thank you so much for those kind words.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because we're with Matthews. We always talk about pairings, and I actually today I completely forgot that today was the day we had you guys on, and I was like, dang, I didn't think of something to pair this with, and now that I'm smoking it and everything, I really wish I had like a nice sweet uh porter, a thick porter beer. But I love the fact that you love rum, uh and my next question really is going to be more about how do you think being in the cigar industry, being married to a Puerto Rican woman, how has this impacted your life as a Latino, in general?
Well, what I love about cigars is it crosses all boundaries of culture. It crosses all different demographics. But what I love to remind people is that tobacco is native to the Americas. It is our thing. Coffee comes from Africa and the Middle East. Sushi is so hot right now. It comes from Japan. But you know what? Tobacco is ours. The indigenous people of the Caribbean, the Carib, the Awak, the Taino, being Puerto Rican, the Taino is a very important indigenous group in the Caribbean. When Christopher Columbus in 1492 had never seen tobacco, Europeans had never seen tobacco, and they saw the indigenous people smoking tobacco, which was new to Europeans, and they saw them smoking in these big groups, smoking ceremonially. And there's a point of pride, I think, as an American. The United States of America, when you think about the founding of our nation, everybody was growing tobacco. Tobacco was worth its weight in gold. It helped build the United States. The English and the British, when they were getting tobacco sent over to them, they fell in love with it and spread it all throughout the world. The French took it to Africa. And really, when you think about tobacco, what the Tainos were doing, the indigenous people were doing. And then in Mexico, you had the Olmecs, you had the Aztecs, the Mayans, you had the Incans in South America. And then you had a lot of indigenous groups in the United States, the Lakota, the Apache, who were smoking tobacco out of peace pipes. The cigar was born in the Caribbean, and it's quickly exported throughout the world. And if you think about what they were doing, smoking in big groups ceremonially, that's what a cigar lounge is today. It is literally not changed in hundreds of years. And I tell everyone, if I could bring everybody back to, let's say, 1901 into a cigar factory in Havana, Cuba, or Tampa, Florida, it is not much different than it is today. The equipment is the same. And I think, as a point of pride culturally, I take a lot of pride in being an American, being a Mexican American, and sharing something that goes back to my indigenous ancestors that were in the Americas that cultivated this tobacco, and it is so still relevant today. And so I take it as a point of pride. My wife, being Puerto Rican, Tainos, they were smoking tobacco, rolled leaves, part of her culture as well. So she totally understands and gets it, and loves what I've done. I've done this for almost 2 years now, and very supportive of what I do. And I do think it's part of my culture to continue to promote the culture and to keep this alive. All the government regulation, all the taxes, all the smoking bans, they can do whatever they want. If you love the tobacco, if you love the leaf, we're going to keep the culture going. If you think about how long tobacco's been around, we all play a little small part in it, right? What you guys do. When I got into cigars in the 90s, I was smoking in a cigar shop with just the people around me. Now I get invited to be on these shows. I get invited to be in these virtual herfs, and I'm smoking with people from England, from Australia, from in Malaysia, and it brings people together. And it's so incredible what you guys are doing. You're adding to the culture. You've brought technology to the culture, and sharing cigars and tobacco with the next generation is something I think all of us have a responsibility. And it goes back to the give more than you take. And that's what I'd like to do. After I retire from the industry, I'd like to say I gave more than I took from the industry. And I think that's why John Huber, Mike Conder, Tim Osgood are the people I work for. It's so important, it's so inbred in them that we are literally carrying the flag to the next generation so they can carry this on to the next generation as well.
Yep. That's awesome, dude. But I appreciate your answers. They're amazing. Uh, One thing before I pass it back to Gas, I want to say, I've been having the M81 for a while now, and I always say that the M81 to me has an herby taste. And I don't know why I never thought of this, but you lit up my light bulb when you said el diplomático.
Yeah.
Brother, I need to get now a diplomático and an M81 and have them together, because that sounds like it should go perfectly together.
And that La Imperiosa, when I sit down to light a La Imperiosa, I like smaller cigars, but when I smoke La Imperiosa, I usually like the double Robusto, and I drink Zacapa when I do that, because that little boldness, that little bit of black pepper is offset by the sweetness that you get from Zacapa rum or even Diplomatico rum. That sweetness is a great kind of yin yang to that. And I'm sure you guys could probably give me some whiskey recommendations as well. But on the rum side, those sweeter rums are great. They have the age, they have the oak barrels. And, I don't. A lot of people maybe know, maybe don't know, but when they make bourbon in Kentucky, they can only use that barrel once. That barrel can only be used once. That's by law.
Yep.
And so all those barrels, 80% of them end up in the Caribbean and wind up holding rum. And so there's a sweetness characteristic that is an underlying factor that you can get in bourbon, you can get in rum, that just pairs up so great with tobacco.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once again, brother, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for answering my questions. I'll go ahead and pass it right back to Gas there, bro.
Gracias, hermano.
Claro.
So, of course, we did have a weird question, and it's from one of the Misfit brothers. And it was, what cigar goes well with a crazy redhead?
Ooh, wow.
And
that's a loaded question right there.
What we get.
Gurkha, you're the dragon.
No, that's too smooth. That's too smooth for a redhead.
Yeah,
I don't know. Dragon's fire breathing, man.
I got a good friend of mine. He used to work with us at Crown Heads, and he's now working with Drew Estate, and he's a redhead, and it seemed like no cigar was too strong for the guy. So maybe there's something to be said about that. You know what I mean? He always wanted the strongest, boldest, most robust cigar he could get.
Like me. And that's the thing. You know something? I've smoked, of course, tons of the blackened M81, and I'm a big Metallica fan.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it, and you know something? You look at the design, it's nice, but what really stuck out to me was when I very first saw yours, because like I say, from Crown Heads, and I didn't know nothing about Crown Heads. I was sent these cigars by my friend from Texas. Tell me what you think of them, brother. One of them's just come out. I'm like, well, which one? He goes, the one that's got the funny band and it says Lost Angel on it. And I'm like, ooh, Lost Angels. I'm like, ooh, okay. So my question is, can you go more into about, of course, the Lost Angel for people? Because I know Kurt hasn't tried it and smoked it. And I was telling Kurt a little bit about it and the rest of the brothers. So can we go more into that, please, Miguel, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Lost Angel is actually a project that we do for the TAA, which is the Tobacco Association of America. It's a group of about 80 retailers in the U.S., and I'm actually leaving to go to their convention on Saturday. This year it's in Aruba. Usually it's in the Dominican Republic, so I leave for Aruba on Saturday, and we'll debut a new Lost Angel under a different name. But that cigar originally started out as the Angel's Anvil. So we use the TAA, their initials of their organization, the Angel's Anvil, and we released it. And it's only in maybe 120 stores in the U.S. because it's these 80 retailers. Some of them have multiple locations, right? And we had that out for years. It's always been one of their best successful exclusive blends that we've ever done. And eventually, you've done so many of them, and John is such an artist. He loves to name, he loves to give these things a name. So we wind up changing it to Lost Angel, and Lost Angel is just a follow-up to the Angel's Anvil. And the cigar has just been a life of its own. Now, it's a little bit harder to find because in Mil Diaz, you can find in 1,000 retailers in the U.S., but maybe only 100, 120 stores you'll be able to ever find the Angel's Anvil. They have to be a member of the TAA to get that cigar. This year, we changed it to just Crowned Heads, TAA exclusive. I think I posted a picture of it on my Instagram. It's really neat. Every year we get to change the blend. We get to tweak with it, play with it a little bit. So remember, if you would love the year that you're smoking, the other years will be different takes. So if you fall in love with that cigar, it is truly something special. It's a big group of organization called the Angel's Anvil. I know Padron, I know Tatuaje, I know Illusione, I know Espinosa does exclusive blends for them as well. And we're very proud to be a member of that organization. And the Angel's Anvil, there's quite a few TAA members in Texas. So there's a handful of shops that he probably could have got them from. But that cigar is very special to us. And it's an opportunity for us to work with different factories. At one time, I think the Garcias did that blend. EPC's done that blend. Pichardo's done that blend. So we've kind of been able to play with it a little bit, moving around the different blenders and different factories. And John always puts out a banger every year. And now they used to come out, around March every year, but now it's going to be coming out later in the year because TAA moved their show from March. When PCA moved to March, they moved theirs from March to October. So this weekend, I'll be debuting the new blend in that lineup of cigars. So that's the story of Lost Angel, a.k.a. Angel's Anvil, a.k.a. Crown Heads exclusive. It's a cigar that we do for a very small amount of retailers in the U.S., and every year it's one of their most successful exclusives that they do. And proceeds of that cigar go to supporting the TAA, which fights for our right to be able to smoke. They fight against legislation. And so there's a lot of good positives with that cigar. Every time you buy one of those cigars, proceeds go back to the organization. So it's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. It is pretty awesome when, of course, you look into it. And I have looked into it, of course, and I know Neptunes.com. They've got some of the lines on there that I've seen, and I was very fortunate enough to try the 2021, and it blew my socks off. And I was like, wow, I want more. And, of course, even when I had, of course, the series that Matthew smoked and, of course, Kurt smoked, I like the band, I like the box art, especially with it, of course, being Eddie Van Halen's guitar.
Yeah.
And it sticks out. And this is why I'm saying you've only got to see what Crown Heads are bringing out the company. The people working behind the scenes like yourself, of course, John, and different people. And seeing the different artwork, the different bands, the boxes, the stories of how the cigar comes around, the different tobaccos. It's a winner all the time. And this is the thing. And, of course, the brothers love them. I've enjoyed them. So the next question is, when are you coming to England, my brother? When are the cigars coming to England so we can smoke them?
I'm actually in talks with the distributor right now, and we're shooting for 2025 for UK launch. So in 2025,
I can't wait.
In 2025, Crown Heads will be available in the UK. We were planning on 2024, but production was crazy off the hook, so we pushed it to 2025. And I have a very good friend that I've known for years over there in the UK. Who 2025 is going to import our cigars there. And you'll also see Oz Family Cigars coming to UK in 2025 as well. So you'll have Crown Heads and Oz Family Cigars hitting that market. And I think 2025 and 2026 will be a big year for Crown Heads internationally. There's a lot of markets that have wanted our cigars that we're now going to kind of get into. We're in Norway. We're in Belgium. Germany's great for us. We're in Dubai. And so you're going to see a lot more cigars in that part of the world coming from us, and we're very excited about it. And then you'll see us coming over, doing some events and some tastings. So you'll be seeing from us very soon.
Oh, trust me, I cannot wait until they're here. And I will be going, of course, to our sponsor here in the UK, GQ Tobacconists, and I will be telling him to get your cigars and stock them. And of course, when I know you're over, I'm going to have to come down and smoke a cigar with you, Miguel, and enjoy it.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so my next question is, and of course, I'm going to take this away from Kurt, because this is one of Kurt's normal questions, what he asks. What cigars from Crown Heads would you say is suitable for a new cigar smoker, getting into cigars and, of course, find Crown Heads? What would be a great starter cigar from Crown Heads for them to smoke?
What I'd love to recommend to people is our original 4 Kicks with the red and gold band. That blend, now it has a Colorado almost rosado like wrapper on it, and it's an Ecuador Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan filler binder. That was the first cigar we launched in 2011. It looks much more aggressive than it is. It is extremely smooth, very crisp, clean tobacco. Casa Carrillo makes it for us. And what was special about that cigar is when we launched Crown Heads, there were a lot of great friends of ours in the industry who said, man, we can make you a cigar tomorrow. We'll slap your band on it. You'll get a cigar in the market right away. But what we wanted to do is we really wanted to create it. And when we went to Ernesto, and Ernesto wasn't making any private label at the time. It was just EPC cigars. It was him, his daughter, and his son. And Ernie's relationship with Mike and John and Tim I was going to go way back. So he said, look, I'll make you guys a cigar. But the first cigar you make, you're going to have to come down here and you're going to have to pick out the tobacco. We're going to go to the tobacco growers. We're going to go to the tobacco brokers, and you're going to pick out the tobacco. You're going to build it yourself, because you have to put your love and you have to put your work into it. So that was the right way to launch Crown Heads. And that cigar, even though it has a dark rosado Habano wrapper, it's not Maduro, right? But it doesn't have that Connecticut shade. That cigar is so smooth. If someone only smokes smooth cigars, that's the cigar I put in their hand, and they'll say, "Ooh, it's got a little rosado to it." I say, "Don't let the wrapper scare you away. Smoke it. It is smooth, crisp, clean. You get these light peanut, almost like a latte-like coffee. So you're not getting that dark, deep roast. You're getting more of a latte, almost like an espresso with milk in it. You get this beautiful, creamy characteristic from it. And it's made by Ernesto Perez Carrillo, who's a legendary cigar maker. You know, on the if you have a Mount Rushmore of cigar makers, he is on that. And it is, for me, the cigar I love putting in people's hands that have not familiar with Crown Heads or needs a smoother cigar. And that cigar always wins them over. It comes in a Sublime, which is a Toro, a traditional Robusto, and my favorite size, a true Cuban Corona Gorda. And that's what I love about that cigar.
Yeah, and that's great, of course, for a new cigar smoker to try. And this is the thing. And like you said, of course, Mount Rushmore, everyone knows you're going to have Ernesto up there. You're going to have, of course, Carlito up there in different ones. And I like EP Grill cigars. And it's good. There's, of course, he said to you, like, you're going to come, you're going to build it yourself and be passionate about the cigars. Because I think sometimes with certain companies, they come into it, they've got the passion and the drive, and then all of a sudden you start to see some of that passion go. And it gets to where you see the cigar either changing, something's changed in the tobacco, and you can tell something's changed in the fillet, or you can tell the binder's changed. And this is the thing. And of course, carrying on how you do, there's nothing that's changed really about Crown Heads from anyone that I've spoken about. From when Crown Heads very first came out to now where Crown Heads are, they're a constant cigar, constant chased. It's there all the time. It's not changed. And that's a great thing to have as a company and be solid and passionate with that good drive. It is.
You know, I think a lot of it, you know, when people just maybe get in the industry, sometimes they go from a consumer to a cigar maker. Look, the foundation of Crown Heads, we're very lucky, very blessed. We have Tim Osgener, born into the industry. John's been in since the 90s. Mike's been in since the 80s. So even though Crown Heads was only started in 2011, the roots of our company are so deep into the industry with the growers and the tobacco and the cigar factories that it has allowed us to learn the game, learn the art, learn the craft before we launched Crown Heads. And I think that's one of the things that has led to the success of Crown Heads over time. It's consistency, quality, and we see that with Tim Osgener. Like Osgener, you know, Tim came back to the business, and Tim putting out Bosphorus, which all rated 90, 93 in Cigar Aficionado, then Aramas 91. He's got the new Fursat, which is a beautiful Connecticut. The idea is to try to put out something that you're so proud of, that your name is on it, that you want people to truly enjoy. And it all comes down to not the band, not the box, not to the marketing. It comes down to the tobacco ultimately. And when you work with great cigar makers, you have great ingredients. When you talk to great chefs around the world, a lot of chefs around the world are cigar makers or cigar smokers. And the chefs will tell you any good meal has to start with great ingredients. And ultimately, every great cigar has to start with great ingredients. Look, we're not making Budweiser. We're not making Coors Light. We are trying to make more artisanal tobacco products, cigars that are very artisanal and very art-like in their existence. And when you have that, you have to be very, very astute to great tobacco and the right vitolas that match the blend. That's another thing. Not every vitola is going to taste great in a Lancero as it's going to taste good in a 5x50.
Oh, yeah.
You pick the right tobaccos, the right blend, and you're able to have that for extended a long amount of time because you want to make that cigar consistent and making sure you pick the right vitolas that will complement that particular blend.
Yeah. So my next one. Oh, here we go. So does Crown Heads have large gauge cigars? I know, of course, Brian and a lot of the cigar misfits, they like the 90s, the 100s, and like I always say,
they like big stuff.
Yeah, it's like sucking on a donkey's dick, I always say. And I just can't do big ring gauge cigars. I just can't. But them guys love them.
Listen, I what I would say is that 56 is about the biggest we go. 56 for Crown Heads might as well be a 990. We're not a big ring gauge company. My good friend Tom Lazuka, who owns Asylum Cigars with Christian Iroda from CLE, he does a wonderful job at making big ring gauge cigars. We are really inspired by tradition. We're very much inspired by old school Cuban vitolas, the Coronas, the Corona Gordas, the more traditional Robustos. We put out a double Corona on Mil Diaz as a limited run a couple of years ago, and it was a 49 ring gauge. And I had a few people come to me and say, man, you have a very small, double. It was called the Escogido. We named it the Escogido, and people said, man, it's a 49 ring gauge. And I said, well, if you look at the traditional, what is a true double Corona, it's a 49 ring gauge. And they would look and they'd say, oh, I didn't know that, because everyone's double Coronas here in the States are 54, 56 and bigger. So we are very much inspired by the history, by the tradition. And so those just happen to be more thinner ring gauges. We have plenty of 50, 52s, 54, 56 ring gauges available, but that's as big as we go. We don't have any 660s or 770s or donkey size cigars. But there are so many great people out there. Agranosa does some great big ring gauges. Asylum does as well. But we are very much inspired by tradition. Old school traditional ring gauges have a lot of inspiration for us. And that's something that we feel like is one of the things that we can share with people. When someone comes to an event and they only smoke big ring gauges and they come to the table and they say, well, I don't really smoke a lot of these thinner ring gauges. And it's hard to hear that sometimes. A 50 to a 56 is the thin ring gauge, because it's not. 40s are thin ring gauges. But it's a great opportunity for us to say, hey, listen, if you were smoking 50 years ago, if you were smoking 60 years ago, there were no 660s. There were no 56 ring gauges. Corona Gorda was gigantic at a 46. So introducing the people to those size cigars, but also why we make those cigars, why they're important, why the Lancero and the Lonsdale exist, why it's important to keep those sizes alive. And that is, I think, part of the culture that we love to share, and that passion with consumers and retailers across the country. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and of course, I keep getting messages from the misfits. Rocket Donkey guys, not Donkey Rocket. They are absolutely on a different level. Trust me, the great guys. We had a great podcast room and they're great friends of ours. So, of course, hi to them. My next one can be a little bit over the top on this one, and it's what I'm seeing a lot of now, and people are classing boutique is a dirty word, and they're about craft and getting to the craft side. To me, craft is still boutique, because when you look at craft beer, it's classed as a boutique brand of beer. So really, do we need to be going away from boutique cigars to craft? Or do we carry on with that? Because to me, why change a name when we used to, of course, the boutique companies, and we know about the boutique companies, to then go, well, it's a craft company now. Well, why has it gone to craft all of a sudden? So what's your thought on that, Miguel?
I think it's a way to kind of separate yourself, right? There's so many boutique brands. When I first started in the business, there were very few boutique brands. And, we saw a large boom of them in the 90s during the cigar boom. They all died out, and boutique was a weird word, right? Boutique for a lot of retailers had a dirty taste in their mouth because there were so many bad boutique brands that came out during the boom, and they all died off because they weren't very good cigars, right? And so
Yep.
with the resurgence of boutique brands in the early 2000s, it was, what does boutique mean now? Now, boutique means smaller brands, smaller productions. We're able to use tobaccos that the big companies maybe can't utilize because there's not enough of them. Take a tobacco like Perro de Oro, Golden Hair. Perro de Oro is a great tobacco. It's a very small plant, produces a lot smaller, less leaves than bigger plants do. So the big companies don't want to grow it because they don't have use for it. But for the boutique brands, we can use that tobacco. We can use little productions of growing a little bit more artisanal style tobaccos because we're able to use ingredients that the big companies, it just doesn't fit their economical kind of plan of growing their brands or mass production. So boutique changed. I mean, boutique was kind of a bad word in the 90s, and it's kind of become an in word, the in thing to call yourselves now, right? Because there's big brands who will say, well, maybe we're a big brand, but we have a boutique mentality, I've heard. Roma Craft calls themselves craft. We call ourselves artisanal. At the end of the day, we're all boutique brands. What does boutique mean? There really isn't a great definition for it anymore. But what I like to think of is if you're representing boutique, you're representing a part of the industry that is about creating. If you look at a lot of the big companies, the General, the Altiduses of the world, the Drew Estates of the world, I honestly, and I think you can look at it so many times, we as boutique brands have influenced them with vitolas, with particular tobaccos. A lot of them weren't making strong cigars, but a lot of the boutique brands built that strong cigar segment that didn't exist in the big cigar world. The Davidoffs, the Altiduses, the Generals. You couldn't get a full-bodied cigar from them. Now they're working with guys like AJ and different people to get that flavor. So the industry has been truly influenced by the boutique brands, and I think the beer world has also got the same thing. The small boutique beer producers have influenced the big beer producers, and at the end of the day, the winner is the consumer because there's better cigars on the market today. I remember in the 90s, you guys, it was horrible. You walk into a shop and you were almost scared to pick a brand you didn't know because you didn't know if it was going to draw. You didn't know if it was going to taste good. You don't know if they were going to be in business a month from now. But today, it's completely different. The boutiques are such a driving force in this industry. And I think guys like Michael Herkelatz, John Huber, Eric Espinosa, Skip Martin, Mike Rosales, these guys are producing and creating things that have benefited our industry as a whole. And so artisanal, craft, boutique, it's all the same at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do you reckon we're in a boutique boom? Because I was asked this question by some brothers of mine. And of course, when I go up to GQ, we're always talking about cigars because, like I say, they're a big importer of Cubans. They have, of course, a lot of New Worlds. They deal with a lot of the big importers in the UK. And I turned around and said, you know something? You look at where boutique were, then, of course, we come around into lockdown. The amount that we saw, like Christoph Cigars, Espinosa, Caramberga, Sinistro, Amendola, of course, Aganorsa, and so many more. We were seeing a lot more of their cigars coming out, seeing a lot more boutique companies going to the bigger ones to get the cigars blended and made by them. And I've always said, where we are now, we're seeing more boutique, and it's taking over the premium side, like, of course, Arturo Fuente, Padron, and stuff like that. And we're seeing more. So are we in that boutique boom now? Because I definitely think we are.
Yes, we are. We are in a boutique boom right now. And what's amazing is you have so many great, incredible brands that I will tell you 10 years ago, most of Europe was not interested in what they call New World cigars. They weren't interested in it. But what happened was the boutiques were creating fuller bodied cigars. The whole big ring gauge came from the boutique. side of the business, and we see how they've influenced Cuba now. Cuba is now doing bigger ring gauges. We've seen now Germany, we've seen Spain, we've seen Belgium. All of a sudden, these cigar smokers are going, I want to try those brands. I've tried the big brands. I've tried Habanos. I want to try these brands that have influenced all these other companies. And we've seen this boom around the world where now you walk into a shop. When I travel internationally, I walk into a shop and I'll usually talk to the shop owner and they'll say, Miguel, 10 years ago, I had 4 boxes of non-Cuban on my shelf. Maybe it was a Fuente, a Padron, something else, maybe a Drew Estate or something. But he said, now look at my humidor. It's 20%, 30% non-Cuban. And they'll say, it is amazing how things have changed. And I think it's that drive of boutique brands trying different tobaccos, trying different style of cigars, different ways of marketing that has influenced and caught people's attention. With the birth of social media, now you can get your information on new blends before a cigar shop does. You can go on Instagram and you can see what Pete Johnson or John Huber's posting in the moment. And people are like, man, I want to try that. And I've seen it a lot in Canada. I go up to Canada once or twice a year to promote our brand up there with our good distributor friends Brigham. And Canada right now is booming with non-Cubans. They want more in their country and they're loving it. They'll come to vacation in New York or Florida and they'll smoke these great non-Cuban cigars and they come back and they demand them. And it is an awesome thing to see. In the end, all of this success of boutique raises the culture even higher. And it makes, I think, the big brands, sharper in what they do. We at Crown Heads, we got to make a Monte Cristo for Altadis. It's called Ciudad de Musica, and it's available at a lot of the Casa de Monte Cristos in the United States, their lounges. And boutique, they don't need us. They didn't need us to make that, but they wanted to partake and have boutique brand joining with them on making a cigar. And, when you see 660s, when you see the Cubans doing bigger ring gauges, that all comes from the boutique world that was birthed out of all these people. And it is awesome. And they want a piece of that pie. They want a piece of that culture. And so we are in that boom. And guys like you who spread the word, it's incredible to see the success. And I will tell you, to be a cigar fan in the 90s could be rough. Being a cigar fan now, you can go into a humidor almost blindfolded and pick out a great cigar. That is great for the industry.
It is, and something, what we've seen here in England, of course, we've always had Cubans. We've always been able to smoke Cuban cigars, and we could get anything. And we've seen a decline in Cubans because you're getting these fantastic boutique companies that are coming to the UK, making great cigars, and everyone's trying them. And I always make sure that when I go and get some cigars, I've got 20 boutique, then I've got a couple of like the premium, Arturo Fuente or Perdomo, or maybe a Padron now and again.
The heritage brands, yeah.
But to me, I'd rather explore the boutique and smoke the boutique to see what's out, what's different. And I'm so jealous of these guys and yourself and, of course, the rest of the brothers and the sisters over in the States, because you've got that constant flow of boutique that you can try and different companies that are always coming up and bringing out fantastic cigars. And this is the thing. I think at the moment we're on for a right good one. It's just the FDA, of course, and then different things that are happening over here in the UK with their rules and regulations. Why do you want to come on to us as cigar smokers and class a cigar with cigarettes and vapes and different ones? And Kurt brought this comment up a couple of nights ago when we were sitting. Why don't we see pipe tobacco included in that? Pipe tobacco is a whole different sector on its own.
Yeah.
So why should cigars be in that same sector? Cigars should be different and on their own sector, because we've spoken to a thoracic surgeon that we're good friends with, and he said most of his surgeries that he did was on cigarette smokers. It wasn't cigar smokers. I had a fall and was in hospital, and they came to me and they're like, right, Gareth, do you smoke? I'm like, well, yeah, I do. Well, what do you smoke? I said, I smoke cigars. Have another fall and you'll be all right. I'm like, what do you mean have another fall? He goes, I'm from Nicaragua. He says, and I'm telling you now, as a Nicaraguan national, smoke more and you'll be fine. They'll do you the world of good. I'm like, okay. And of course, you see that, and I absolutely loved it. But my next one, and the guys know where I'm going on this one. And this is a great question. This is a bit of a brain teaser for you, Miguel. Let me put it this way, it's a brain teaser, my brother. So 5 people, alive or dead, that you would love to sit and smoke a cigar with, and it can be anyone. Alive or dead, from music to film to in the cigar community, anyone. 5 people, my brother.
Well, the FDA and all that, it's incredible you mentioned that. It's a lack of education on their end, understanding that cigars are an art and a culture and a craft, and it's really about all of our organizations, PCA, TAA, all the different groups that we have here, educating the government and their representatives on what makes us different, right? Five guys that I would love to smoke a cigar with, live or dead. I think for me, I got to meet Old Man Padron quite a bit, but I never got to sit down and have a cigar with him before he passed. That would have been awesome. Ulysses S. Grant, former president of the United States, the winner of the Civil War. He was a diehard cigar smoker, and he was a pipe smoker at the end of his life. That guy there, I think, would have been absolutely awesome to have a cigar with. I would love to have a cigar with Winston Churchill, probably one of the most famous cigar smokers of all time. Winston Churchill, to be honest with you, the cigar may be the least important thing talking to a guy like that, because you'd be talking about World War II and all the strategy and all the things, but it would be a great thing to do with somebody, of that kind of depth and knowledge. I think going back, probably there's a lot of people I'd love to smoke with that are nameless, and I love to bring these people up. There are people that were in the cigar industry through the 50s and 60s and 70s, old men that were in this business for generations, that our names are almost forgotten to the past, that gave their lives to this industry. There was no social media. There was no internet. So they're not internationally known like a Rocky Patel or a Pete Johnson or a John Huber, where everyone knows them. There's a lot of names of people that were in the industry in the late 1800s and 1900s that we'll never know their names, but they gave their lives to this culture so we can enjoy it now. I think a group of those people to sit in a factory in 1898, to sit in the factory and smoke with some of the people rolling cigars then, I think would be absolutely awesome. I think I don't know if that's 5, but I think those individuals are the first ones that come to my mind. I think people that have a great story, people that have a lot to share, and people that truly have a love of the leaf. I would have loved to smoke a Petite H. Upmann with John F. Kennedy, to sit down with him and smoke one of his Cuban cigars that he would smoke. There's so many people that I would love to have had a cigar with. It's like music, it's like, what concerts I would have loved to see Bob Marley in concert, but I was too young. And, things like that is what I think about with cigar smoking. So what I do is, when I get an opportunity to sit with a cigar maker or a cigar legend, to this day, one of the favorite things to do is to hang out in the factory in the Dominican Republic, Casa Carrillo, with Ernesto Perez Carrillo, to sit down with him and light up a cigar and just pick his brain. Luckily, that's one of those guys that I said, whenever I get that chance, I don't care what I'm doing, I will stop. I will make time to smoke cigars with them, because guys like that generation, they're dying off, man. Old Man Oliva, Old Man Padron, Old Man Fuente, that generation is dying off. And these stories that they have, they need to be told to somebody so we can continue those stories on. And Ernesto is one of those guys, luckily, who's still alive, that I get to smoke a cigar with, that I absolutely love. Hopefully, I answered the question.
That's the thing. No, you've answered it brilliant, and this is the thing. You know something? A lot of people will come out with either celebrities or they'll come out with music stars. I know I came out of Ozzy Osbourne, and of course James Hetfield, because Ozzy Osbourne grew up in Birmingham, 30 minutes away from where I live in Stoke-on-Trent. He was a cigar smoker, West Midlander like me, and it'd be great to sit down with him. But of course, like Winston Churchill, and talking about World War II and the strategies and getting that. I'm a big history buff, and I studied World War I, World War II, and I like that. And you know something? You've hit the nail on the head with other people that were out there, legends that people forget the names. And you know something? I've got to say this from the bottom of my heart. It's great when we can sit down with yourself, we can sit down with different people from the cigar community and the cigar makers, the cigar reps, the managers, and be able to sit and have a cigar. It's like we had Laurel Tilly on, of course, from AJ.
Oh,
We had
yes.
a great chat with her. We sat down, of course, with David Spike from EP, and we
Yep.
smoked, of course, the Encore Black when they brought that out. The amount of people that we've met, and like Ricky, you brought a great thing up when you were on about chefs and making stuff, and Ricky said to us, well, I can go and make a hamburger. That's easy. You get the patty and you get the bun. He goes, but I can't make a McDonald's. I can't go and make a Burger King the same because they are totally different. But what I can do is when I ferment the tobacco, I do it in a different way. So our cigars are different to this company's. And that's a great way of putting it together and saying, well, this is why we're different. This is why, of course, Crown Heads are different. This is why this company's different. And all of us smoke different cigars. And I know Jesse's getting wet. So, haha, motherfucker, you're getting wet. Love you too. Because normally we get all the rain.
You
Well,
know,
of course.
it really never rains much over here. It's pretty desert-like over here. And usually when it says it's going to rain, it doesn't. This shit got me, it got me in surprise because I didn't know this was happening. I got an umbrella over everything, and my wife is coming out trying to grab some equipment before it gets ruined.
I gotta tell you, man. Like in Ohio, I had a patio, and if it rained, I was in the rain like you. And then I moved to Florida, and they had these things called lanais, where it's a fancy word for screened-in porch. And that's the one thing I love about Florida is the screened-in porches. So I feel you up there, brother. But to go back to what you were saying is that I mean you can give a guitar to Santana, you can give a guitar to Bob Marley, you can give a guitar to whoever, right? And it's the same cigar, and yet they can make it. Prince can make it sing and make it dance a different way than Santana does. You can almost hear, Santana's playing the guitar just by the riffs that he plays. And cigars are the same way. Cigars are you can literally give 5 chefs the same ingredients and you can get 5 different meals. It's about what's inside their craft and art and how they interpret that tobacco and what they make. And you'll get different vitolas, different sizes. I mean, that's the beauty of cigars. And it's tobacco. And people will ask me, well, it's tobacco. It's all the same. It's tobacco. But there's so much more to it. There's all these different seed strains. There's different ways to ferment. There's different ways how you age. There's different ways how you roll. And the accordion to the intubar. There's all these different ways. And it gives people an opportunity to experience a product like tobacco, premium cigar tobacco, in different ways and different manners. I know I don't want to go to the same restaurant the rest of my life. And that's the way I treat my cigars. I want to smoke cigars from everybody and experience what they love about a cigar.
Yeah. I know, of course, Tom's put in. Tom did come late into the show, and he said, well, if you don't mind asking, where in Ohio did you live? So, of course, he's asked whereabout it was in Ohio that you lived.
I was born on the south side of Chicago, but at the age of 2 or 3, we moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, and I lived there all the way till about 5 or 6 years ago when my wife convinced me to move to this really hot state called Florida, South Florida. But I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a Cincinnati Reds diehard fan. I love Ohio. I always say if you cut me open, my heart is the shape of Ohio. I love Cleveland. I love Columbus, Toledo, Dayton. I love the state of Ohio, but Cincinnati is my heart, and I miss that city tremendously. My wife is from Puerto Rico, so she went there to college. That's where I met her, and so she doesn't love it as much as I do. But I would live in that city again anytime. But she likes things called palm trees, and she likes the sun. So that's why I'm in Florida. But I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio.
You know something? You pick just on one, and it always sticks in my head about Santana. And you look at Santana with how he plays the guitar, you can tell by the riff to Santana this is his kind of song.
Yep.
But when he did some of the collaborations, he did one with Eric Clapton. Mm-hmm. And when he did that with Eric Clapton, I couldn't tell the difference who was playing because
Wow.
they both sounded so familiar. And I look at Clapton now. Even though he stepped away from music, he came back and did a song with Ozzy off Ozzy's last album. You can tell with Clapton how he plays. And this is the thing. No matter who plays a guitar, it's always different. The same as, like you said, of course, with tobacco. We always change different bits of the tobacco, what ingredients we use from the wrapper, the binder, the filler, what we want to get in that. If we want, of course, a bit of leather, if we want that red pepper, if we want the white pepper and different things. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating when you sit down with like yourself and different people, you get into the brains and you go, so what's the thought process into this? And they go, well, it's this, this, and this. And you go, okay, yeah, you know something. You got my brain thinking now. And of course, this is why we do it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back up to Kurt. And Kurt, have you got any final questions you want to ask Miguel, my brother?
No, I just really appreciate it. You've opened my eyes to some new Crown Head cigars that I want to try. So I appreciate the education. I really learned a lot tonight. So I really was looking forward to this episode, and you came through for us, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Where are you at, by the way?
I'm up in Blue Ridge. I'm in Blairsville, Georgia, which is between Blue Ridge. I'm like 15 miles from North Carolina, 15 miles from Tennessee. I'm way at the top in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
That's right. That's right. Awesome.
Of course, all the brothers are scattered, of course. You got Jesse there in Washington where it's raining, so that's all I can say on that one.
That's true.
You know
That's true Cigar Loons dedication, Jesse.
Yeah, it is. Of course, we've got our grumpy preacher. Of course, the grumpy old bastard, as I call him, and Grandad. He's in, of course, the Florida Panhandle. Then, of course, we've got my brother from another mother. He always gives me a little bit of shit and gives me the odd dig, and I give it to him back. Of course, Matthew, and he's over there in Ohio. I'm watching you, too, my brother. I'm watching you. I can see you.
The great state of Ohio.
You know, so
That's right.
It's great to get with people, smoke a cigar, and have this common love for the leaf, having a laugh, having a chat. And from me, Miguel, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm so glad that you, your wife, and your family are safe. Because as soon as I saw that was coming in, I got the message from you saying, brother, it's coming, it's hitting. And then I saw the map and it was like, oh shit, God's really dumped a great load of water down there. Shit. And I was like, I hope he's okay. And then I didn't get nothing from you. And I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? I better check. And then I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad you're safe. And thank you again for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to get back on. That was last week was crazy. And I'm still new to these hurricane things, but thank you for having me on. You guys are awesome, man. And anytime I can do anything for you guys, as I said, you guys are doing this incredible service, bringing these shows to individuals out there and creating the culture and adding to the culture. It's so amazing. And to take time to do this, I feel blessed to be on your show. And I thank you guys so much. And hopefully, share and whatever I can add to the show a little bit. And anytime you guys need anything from me, I'm there for you.
Thanks very much, brother. It means a lot. And like I say, we'll definitely, of course, get you back on and we'll have another sit down, of course, when the cigars at the UK will do, of course, an episode. Just leave it at the UK and get yourself back on and everything. And of course, promote them more over here in the UK for people, of course, to get. And I'm hoping, of course, the UK audience is on watch. Let's say hitting next year. Keep your eyes open, everybody. They're coming. And I tell you one thing, wait until you try them. You're on for a banger and you're for a winner. And they're going to knock your socks off because they're different. I know because I've smoked them and my brothers have. Go on, Kate.
Miguel, I do have one question. So that Lost Angel, that exclusive line that's only on 120 shops nationwide, so the name of that one you're launching now is now the Crown Heads exclusive for this year?
Yep, it's just called Crown Heads TAA exclusive.
Okay, so if I wanted to look for it somewhere, that's what I look for. All right.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Gary.
thank you very much, Gary, of course. Please, of course, when you do watch this, please put, of course, hashtag Cigar Loons, hashtag Cigar Misfits, hashtag, of course, Crown Heads. Please go and like, subscribe, hit that notification button. Go and, of course, find Miguel over on Instagram and see the content that he's posting with the cigars and, of course, the information that you see. Go and check out Crown Head's website because you'll find more out on there. And, of course, if you like the cigars, let us know about the cigars that you've been smoking. Even if it is just sending us a quick message and saying, look, Loons, we've tried this. What do you think? By all means. And, of course, Kurt's been doing some great reviews on some of the Crown Heads that's on our website, so you can check them out. Of course, Matthew's been doing some reviews. Also, go and check out tobaccogSticks.com. Of course, you can go and find Jesse's content there and go and check out the website. You can check out the Cigar Loons. But from us, it's a great big thank you again, Miguel, for sitting down with us tonight, spending this time. I know, of course, it's getting late in the evening now for everyone. But thank you again, my brother, for being here. And most definitely, I'll keep in contact. And like I say, as soon as the cigars come on the UK, let's get back together and get another show out, my brother. It's going to be awesome. And
100%.
let me know when you get here in the UK, and I will be straight there, and I shall buy you a beer, and we'll smoke a cigar together, my brother. We will. And stuff these other ones that they can stay in the States. You know, something come to England. We'll be all right, my brother. We'll be all right.
We'll take a show on the road, man.
There you go.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hey, Brian's got a quick question here.
Oh, go on.
What's up, Brian?
So what's your question? Come on, Brian.
Yeah, the quicker.
While Brian is working on that question, all 5 of you guys on here that are hosting the show, do me a favor. Make sure you guys send me an email with all your addresses. I'll send a little gift out to you guys. All right, all of you.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you.
We appreciate that,
thank
Miguel.
you,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Oh, here we go.
A long time ago, brother. A long time ago.
To answer that question real quick, I will say yes, he should be in. And the funny thing is his bat is there, his uniform is there. He's already there. They just haven't physically put a plaque of him there. So it's about time that they put the plaque up. If it's good enough for his bat and good enough for his records, he deserves a place in the Hall of Fame.
There you go.
Yeah.
Not to mention, there's those that are there that did a lot worse.
100%.
Just saying.
100%.
That's right.
I will say one last thing before we leave. I definitely see this year Crown Heads being in some of the ratings and getting some great rewards with a lot of other companies. And you know something? If the publications don't, I'll be in shock. Because we've spoken about this before. And we've seen a lot where if you've got the money, it pays. But the company, when they've got the drive, pushing that cigar out, it's a constant great cigar. They should be in that list. And I've always said, take Cubans out of it because you can't get them in the States. Why put them in?
Mm-hmm.
That's my little focal point on that. And Cigar Loons have got something coming, so keep your eyes open. We have got something coming. And let me put it this way. It's coming next month. It's going to blow everybody's head with what we're doing. And we will be giving an award out. It's going to be a virtual award. But of course, it'll be the first time we do it, and it's going to be great. Now, next week, oh, God help us next week. Oh, God help us next week. I shall be really praying and sitting and hoping that it doesn't go sideways with Grumpy with some of his questions and going down a rabbit hole. Of course, we've got the Leaf Cutters. We've got the Leaf Cutters next week. We've got our brothers from the Leaf Cutters going to be joining us. Going to be a great show with them guys. And of course, if you don't mind, Miguel, what I'm going to do, I'm going to shoot the Leaf Cutters your information so they can get you on their podcast as well, my brother, because they're great supporters of ours. We're great supporters of theirs. And I'll shoot them your information so, of course, they can get in touch with you. You can get on there. And like I say again, great big thank you from us. great big thank you to everyone watching us, of course, on Instagram, on YouTube, of course, on Rumble, and for staying here for the time that we've been live tonight. We thank you to you. We appreciate it and everything. But of course, we all know where we're going to go now, so we'll kick off with Kate. Kate.
Miguel, thank you so much for being here. And,
every week.
Smoke them if you got them. We'll see you next time.
Make sure you get me your guys' addresses, all of you.
Will do.
All right, man. See you guys. Bye.
Of course. Jesse, your line.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here, Paisano. And keep them lit, brother.
Matthew.
Don't start none, won't be none.
And of course, we'll go over to Grumpy with your famous line, my brother.
Jesus ain't driving the bus. Pull it over. Let Jesus take the wheel. Catch me next time.
Hey.
Appreciate
Stay
you being
smoky,
here,
everyone.
brother.
Stay smoky, and we'll catch you next week, guys. And from us, big love, big thank you. And I'm going to play you out our number one award song, as I always call it. Cigar Loons. See you next week.
Cigar Loons Podcast. We are the invaders of the cigar world. Cigar Kurt, the front porch cowboy. It's a ginger grizzly bear with a super palate. Cigar Loons, invaders of the cigar world. Grumpy preacher, the conspiracy theory expert. Cigar Loons Podcast, come and join us. Vitola and proof expert on all things spirits. Tobacco G, Stitch director of special operations. Cigar Loons Podcast, we are the invaders of the cigar world. Cigar Kurt, the front porch cowboy. As a ginger grizzly bear with a super palate. Cigar Loons, invaders of the cigar world. Grumpy preacher, the conspiracy theory expert. Cigar Loons Podcast, come and join.